The moment the show returned from commercial, the atmosphere had shifted. What had started as a tense but measured debate now teetered on the edge of chaos. The host welcomed viewers back with a shaky smile, his voice a touch higher than before, subtly acknowledging the temperature spike in the room. Elon Musk and Reppers Jasmine Crockett sat still, facing forward, but the tension between them was now palpable. Their expressions were no longer composed but sharpened, Musk's eyes calculating, Crockett's jaw clenched with resolve. The host attempted to steer the discussion back to safer ground, asking about data privacy in AI applications. Musk answered, first, stating that privacy was important but often misunderstood. People complain about data privacy while sharing everything about their lives online. The real issue isn't privacy, it's control. Who controls the tools? That's the real fight. But Crockett wasn't having it. She leaned forward and fired off a critique so pointed it felt like a blade. It's funny hearing you talk about control, Elon, when you fired employees for disagreeing with your tweets, banned journalists from your platforms, and bent entire corporate policies to fit your ego. You don't want control to be fair. You just want to own it. The room gasped. Musk blinked slowly, then tilted his head, his voice suddenly colder. You lecture about ethics while raising campaign money from defense contractors who literally profit from war. Let's not pretend. You care about people more than power. The silence that followed hit like thunder. Audience members froze mid-breath. The host, caught off guard, stammered a half-formed interjection, but it was drowned by the audience's audible reactions. Shocked gasps, a few cheers, scattered murmurs of disbelief. Musk didn't blink. He wasn't smiling anymore. Crockett stared at him, stunned for a split second. She tried to speak, but Musk kept going. You grandstand about tech being dangerous, but Congress can't even define what an algorithm is. You're not regulating AI. You're just using fear to stay relevant. By now, the crowd had fractured. Some applauded wildly, others booed. The split wasn't just political, it was generational, cultural, ideological. And for the first time, Crockett looked rattled, not defeated, but momentarily staggered by how far Musk was willing to go. The host quickly cut to a video segment, desperate to regain control. But it was too late. The line had been crossed, and the world was watching. As the program resumed, the energy in the room had transformed from anticipation to volatile unpredictability. Audience members were no longer quietly observing. They were participants now, responding in real time to every verbal blow. The host, clearly rattled by the verbal exchange between Elon Musk and Repper Jasmine Crockett, attempted to re-establish control, shifting the discussion to broader policy implications. But it was clear. The show had spiraled beyond the original script. Crockett, trying to recover from Musk's sharp accusations, took a deep breath and launched into a passionate defense. We have a duty to call out power when it's misused, especially by unelected billionaires who influence our lives with zero accountability. This isn't about tech literacy, it's about responsibility. If Elon Musk wants to act like a head of state, he should be subject to the same scrutiny. Her words landed with force, and a segment of the crowd erupted in applause. But Musk didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to the host and calmly said, "You know what's fascinating? Congresswoman Crockett talks about accountability, yet her own party's AI Oversight Committee hasn't produced a single enforceable policy in over 2 years. If that's what leadership looks like, maybe it's time engineers ran the country." That jab sent the audience into a frenzy. Some people stood to clap. Others shook their heads or jeered. The host's attempts to interrupt were futile. Because conversation had devolved into a raw contest of dominance, and the audience was fully invested in the spectacle. Crockett, now visibly irritated, accused Musk of undermining democratic processes by using his companies and platforms to manipulate public perception. You buy influence, Elon. You buy companies, rewrite their rules, and then claim you're saving democracy. But what you're really doing is turning technology into a weapon against the very systems that protect ordinary people. Musk, unfazed, leaned back and replied with an icy smirk. Better to disrupt broken systems than prop them up with empty speeches. People are tired of performative outrage. They want results. And frankly, I deliver. The audience split again, roaring approval from Musk's supporters, angry muttering from others. The host quickly thanked both guests and tried to transition into a pre-recorded segment, but the electricity of the moment couldn't be diffused. People weren't just reacting, they were choosing sides. The fallout had begun, and Musk's words were echoing far beyond the studio. As the cameras faded to black and the show's broadcast ended, the tremors from the confrontation between Elon Musk and Representative Jasmine Crockett were only just beginning to ripple across the country. In the control room, producers stared at their screens in disbelief. They knew they had just captured lightning in a bottle, a cultural flashpoint that would dominate headlines, social media feeds, podcasts, and political think pieces for weeks to come. But even they couldn't predict how far the fallout would reach or how deeply it would resonate. Outside the studio, the audience spilled into the lobby buzzing with energy. Some were visibly shaken, others elated. Phones were out, notifications pouring in. Clips of Musk's cutting remarks and Crockett's impassioned rebukes were already going viral. TikTok edits paired dramatic music with Musk's now infamous line about war profiteering. Instagram stories showed Crockett clutching her, quote, printout, calling Musk the king of the danger zone. Twitter, or rather X, ironically owned by Musk himself, was a battleground of takes, hot and cold, from every imaginable corner of the political and cultural spectrum. Cable news networks jumped in immediately. Conservative outlets praised Musk for finally saying what no one else would, hailing his takedown of perceived political hypocrisy. Progressive commentators, meanwhile, lauded Crockett's courage for challenging one of the world's most powerful men on live television. Neutral analysts struggled to find common ground, repeatedly playing back the key moments, dissecting body language, and speculating on what the public would take away from such a fiery display. The debate wasn't just about Musk and Crockett anymore. It had become a mirror reflecting a deeply divided nation, one grappling with who should control the technologies reshaping everyday life. The collision between Silicon Valley ambition and Washington oversight had been brewing for years, and now it had erupted in full view of millions. Everyone had something to say, and nobody was backing down. Within 24 hours, mainstream headlines read like battle cries. Musk destroys political optics with cold facts, sat beside Crockett exposes tech tyranny in viral smackdown. Opinion columns poured in. Public figures took sides. Hashtags like Musk shuts down and Crockett claps back trended globally. Every moment from the broadcast was dissected, debated, and turned into content. The internet was no longer just reacting to the exchange. It was consuming it, feeding on the spectacle, repackaging it into memes, parodies, and essays. Meanwhile, Musk posted a single cryptic message to X. If truth feels like an attack, maybe you're too used to lies. The post went viral in minutes. Crockett, refusing to let the last word belong to him, released a formal statement the next morning. Power without conscience is not leadership. We need more light, not louder shadows. She followed it up with a public interview on MSNBC, doubling down on her accusations against Musk's companies and calling for immediate congressional hearings into AI accountability. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle found themselves pressured to respond. Some called for tighter regulations on AI development, citing the very concerns raised during the show. Others defended tech leaders like Musk, arguing that innovation must not be suffocated by bureaucratic red tape. The clash had ignited something larger than either participant, a national reckoning over who gets to shape the future. In classrooms, students debated whether Crockett had exposed a dangerous reality or overstepped her role. In offices, Musk's comments sparked discussions about workplace ethics and automation. In boardrooms and back channels, both political operatives and tech executives reviewed footage from the Showdown like analysts studying game tape. It wasn't just political theater, it was a turning point. The broadcast had ended, but the battle lines it revealed were just beginning to take form. Crockett had challenged the rising tide of tech dominance, while Musk had exposed what he saw as the hollow theater of modern governance. Both had walked into that studio with agendas. Both had left as symbols of larger forces. And the world, watching with breath held and eyes wide, understood one thing clearly. The future wasn't waiting. It was already here. And the war for control had just gone prime time. The anticipation leading up to the televised special had reached an almost feverish pitch. For weeks, social media had buzzed with speculation, hashtags like "Would AI Reckoning" and "Miar Musk vs. Crockett" gaining traction far beyond typical political discourse. The producers of America Unfiltered knew they had struck gold the moment both guests agreed to appear. This was not just a policy debate, it was a clash of titans. Elon Musk, the polarizing tech visionary whose ventures had disrupted entire industries, and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a rising Democratic firebrand from Texas known for her unflinching interrogations in congressional hearings. Their appearance on the show was not accidental. It was the culmination of months of growing tension between Silicon Valley and Capitol Hill. As Musk's influence over sectors like space exploration, electric vehicles, neurotechnology, and most recently, artificial intelligence continued to expand, lawmakers across party lines had begun to ask uncomfortable questions. Crockett had emerged as one of the most vocal critics. She was articulate, telegenic, and possessed a biting sarcasm that turned her committee clips into viral moments. For her, Musk represented unchecked capitalism, a technocrat billionaire with more sway than most elected officials. The stage. Design was sleek, modern, a perfect metaphor for the subject at hand. Spotlights glinted off polished black flooring, LED screens projected pulsing data visuals, and a massive live audience filled the state-of-the-art auditorium. The crowd itself was a study in division. Tech enthusiasts and Tesla fanboys sat next, to policy wonks, student activists, and political insiders. Some came to cheer Musk, others came to see him challenged. Backstage, Elon Musk appeared relaxed but alert, scrolling through his phone while sipping from a metallic water bottle. His team had briefed him on Crockett's talking points. Her repeated claims that Tesla skirted labor laws, her insinuations that Neuralink posed ethical concerns, her efforts to frame AI regulation as the civil rights issue of the century. Musk wasn't new to criticism. He had weathered accusations ranging from stock manipulation to employee mistreatment, and he'd done it all with a mix of public defiance and meme-laden dismissiveness. But tonight was different. This was live television. There would be no editing, no tweet to hide behind. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, was undergoing final touch-ups by her makeup artist. She had prepared meticulously, memorizing Musk's old interviews, dissecting his public statements, even speaking with ex-employees of SpaceX and OpenAI. Her goal was to expose what she saw as a dangerous paradox, how Musk portrayed himself as a free speech advocate and humanitarian while steering technological revolutions with zero democratic oversight. She wasn't intimidated by his status. In her words, if you can grill a Supreme Court nominee on national television, you can handle a billionaire with a spaceship. As the show opened with dramatic music and sweeping camera shots, the energy in the room turned electric. The host, a veteran journalist with decades of experience moderating political confrontations, laid the groundwork with an opening monologue that underscored the urgency of the moment. "We are entering an age," he said, "where artificial intelligence doesn't just answer your questions, it writes your legal contracts, drives your car, maybe even fights your wars. And tonight, we explore, who gets to decide how far it goes?" The first question was a softball, a strategic move to warm the guests and allow them to establish their positions. Musk leaned into his usual libertarian stance. He emphasized innovation, the dangers of bureaucratic inertia, and how overregulation could stifle American progress at a time when China was racing ahead. He framed AI not as a threat, but as an inevitability that must be stewarded by those who understand it. People, like himself. His tone was cool, assured, tinged with the kind of measured arrogance that comes naturally to someone who builds rockets for fun. Crockett countered with a measured argument about public interest. She cited growing disparities in access to AI, tools, the risks of data manipulation, and the troubling fact that many of these systems were trained on biased or unverified datasets. "Let's be honest," she said, facing the audience. "The same folks telling us not to worry about AI are the ones profiting the most from keeping it opaque. And when those systems fail, or when they discriminate, who's accountable? Not the algorithms, the people behind them." Musk offered a faint smile. "Respectfully, Congresswoman, I think you're underestimating how complex these systems are. There's a difference between theoretical oversight and operational reality. You can't regulate AI like it's a toaster." That prompted laughter from some in the crowd, but Crockett remained composed. "I'm not trying to regulate a toaster. I'm trying to prevent the smartest minds in the world from creating an intelligence that might treat humans like toasters." The host intervened to shift the conversation toward real-world impacts. He referenced reports that Tesla's full self-driving software had been involved in accidents, even fatalities, and asked whether Musk believed that oversight mechanisms were too lax or too strict. Musk didn't flinch. He reiterated that statistically, autonomous vehicles had already proven to be safer than human drivers. "But the media only reports crashes involving Teslas," he said. "Not the 40,000 people a year dying in traditional car accidents. There's a bias here, and it's driven by sensationalism." Crockett seized the opening. "Sensationalism? Tell that to the families who lost loved ones. Tell that to the workers who collapsed on Tesla assembly lines during heat waves because management refused to shut down production. You keep saying the future is inevitable, but you act like the consequences aren't." The exchange began to draw more pronounced reactions from the audience. Murmurs, a few claps, even some boos. The tension was visible now, reflected in the body language of both guests. Musk shifted in his seat slightly, less amused. Crockett's voice grew firmer, her cadence sharpening like a prosecutor building toward cross-examination. The host tried to move to another topic, Neuralink, but Crockett interrupted. She pulled out a printed quote from a previous Musk interview where he suggested that AI could become an immortal dictator from which we can never escape. Holding it up, she addressed him directly. "This is your own quote. If you believe that's a possibility, why are you rushing to be the one who builds it first?" For a moment, Musk didn't speak. The silence stretched just long enough to create suspense. Then he replied, "Because someone has to, and I'd rather it be someone who understands the danger than someone who doesn't." Or, Crockett snapped back, "someone who just wants to be king of the danger zone." The studio erupted. Some cheered, others hissed. The host stepped in again, now visibly aware that the gloves had come off. He pivoted to ask about AI's role in military applications, citing Musk's recently announced partnership with the Department of Defense to develop drone coordination algorithms. Crockett's eyes narrowed. "So now we're automating warfare. Great. Because if there's one thing the world needs, it's faster, smarter ways to kill each other." Musk responded with a cold pragmatism. "Defense is inevitable. I don't make those rules. But if we don't lead in this space, others will. Countries that don't share our values." The irony was thick, and Crockett didn't miss it. "And what values are those? Transparency? Consent? Equity? Because last I checked, nobody voted for you to decide any of this." Musk looked directly at her now. "That's rich coming from a Congress that can't pass a basic AI bill because half of them still think TikTok is a search engine." The host realized he was no longer moderating a debate. He was navigating a cultural earthquake. Two worldviews were colliding in real time. The disruptive logic of Silicon Valley versus the public accountability demands of Washington. It was innovation versus regulation, speed versus caution, ambition versus ethics. And yet, the moment remained poised. On the edge of detonation, the truly explosive exchange had not yet arrived, but the groundwork had been laid in granite. The show went to commercial. The live audience buzzed like a hive. People turned to one another with wide eyes and whispered predictions. Everyone knew what was coming. They just didn't know how big the explosion would be, or who would walk away standing.